Yeah, absolutely. Just to kind of expand on, something that's obviously very pervasive and very tragic that you mentioned when you were introducing your background. I think one of the, places we have to start our conversation, is the NYPD, right? Gavin and I are based out of Kansas City, but the NYPD has a reputation nationally of, frankly, being one of the most brutal and corrupt law enforcement agencies in America, which it's tough to consider when you consider the Kansas City law enforcement would give them a tough run for their money. Um, and I want to talk about your plan to defund the police if you're elected and how we can reallocate those resources more effectively to actually serve our communities and not prey on them.
Yeah. So I admit to having been the first candidate to call for defunding the police, and I did that actually right after my son was assaulted. The remarks that I just shared. I think that I can't even begin to explain the trauma from that experience. Like I watched it, right? I watched it unfold. And he was with me. And so I know what he was doing, and he was doing nothing other than marching for civil rights. Right. And so, I called for defunding the police, and I understand that has become kind of like a lightning rod in a lot of different ways. But the reality of it is that, unpacking that, it means divesting from policing and really investing in communities. It means reclaiming the definition of public safety and recognizing that public safety and policing are not the same thing. It means recognizing that in New York City specifically, I know that over 80% of the calls that the police respond to are actually not crimes. They are, social issues, right? It's homelessness, it's mental health, it is substance abuse. And so I've called for the creation of a community first responders department that would be staffed with people who are trained in intervention and de-escalation, and then actually connecting people with the services that they need to move forward. So, I think another way of thinking about this is I am supporting the idea of unburdening the police so that they don't have to respond to issues that are not crimes. And really, if you think about doing that in a proportionate way to the percentage of calls, that's not an insignificant chunk of money. And we could do a lot in terms of investing in our communities if we reallocated and reinvested in such a way that really reflects what I think should be our values for keeping communities safe.
Yeah, definitely. Gavin and I recently spoke with a former candidate for Manhattan DA, Janos Martin, who recently dropped out, who ran on an excellent platform of defunding the police and also closing Rikers Island. And I wondered if you could share with us your position on that and whether or not you think that the need to close Rikers Island would be high on your priority list.
Yeah, I mean, it is high on my priority list. I've called for the closing of Rikers and no new jails. I think we know, like with the cash bail issue, we know the number of people that are locked up for minor offenses. We know that what has happened and transpired over the COVID-19 pandemic, and the risk that so many people's lives are being are in as a result of it. It's just sort of it's inhumane. It doesn't make sense. We need to move away from that, and I think that's consistent with a sort of defund the police movement. It's consistent with the needs for the reform of the criminal legal system, which we know has for so long disproportionately impacted Black and brown low-income folks. And it's just one critical step in that process, but it is a critical step. And I think it's very important that we move towards closing Rikers. And just in terms of Janos, I was a supporter of Janos, so I was definitely disappointed. But I also completely understood. We've had conversations about campaign financing and how that whole system works. And
unfortunately, I believe the issue was they weren't eligible for any of the matching for the campaign financing, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah.
Well, so the DA's race actually aren't eligible for matching funds. They don't participate in that. And the reality of it is, just to sort of digress for a hot second, the reality of it is that no matter what we think about how much we want to transform the system, electoral politics is so connected to networks and money still. New York City has adopted this matching funds program for certain races, for the mayor, for the citywide races, and for the city council. And still, the language of viability is really just code for how many wealthy people do you know and how many of them are going to contribute to your campaign. And for those of us who are insurgent candidates and who are running against the status quo, the barriers are limitless and really, really difficult to overcome. So my hat's off to Janos for running his campaign was just, there's so much integrity in it. But it is unfortunate that I think that he got sort of subjected to that system. And I struggle with it on an ongoing basis as well. So I'm not immune to it by any means. I'm just still standing.
Yeah, well, for anyone that's watching this, just so you know, we have included the link in the description for Dianne's website so you can chip in and help her campaign out to overcome some of those hurdles because, as we've talked about a lot on the show, especially in New York City and especially the mayor's race, it kind of is a corruption contest. And, we really do appreciate
Mike Bloomberg or
exactly.
Bill de Blasio.
And we really appreciate the fact that you're, have taken steps to make your, campaign financing a lot cleaner than some of your competitors and so on and so forth.